Hello, and welcome to Ad Age's custom webcast sponsored by Fluency. The topic today is multi-channel at scale using ad automation and AI for better outcomes with fewer resources. I'm John Dioso, editor of Ad Age Studio 30. A few quick items to go over before we begin. We'll hear from today's presenters, and then we'll open the floor to your questions. To participate in the Q&A section of this webcast, all you have to do is type your question into the Ask a Question text area, and then click the Send button. You may submit the questions at any time during the webcast, and we'll address as many as time permits after our presenters' prepared remarks. All right, let's get started. So I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers. Our speakers today are Eric Mayhew, the president, co-founder, and chief product officer at Fluency, and Andy MacLeay, the VP of engagement and channels at Fluency. Eric and Andy, welcome.
Thank you, John.
Hi, how are you?
Take it away.
Thanks so much.
All right, glad to have you. Show is yours.
All right, great. Thanks so much, John, and definitely thanks to Ad Age. Excited to be here. We've got a lot of fun stuff that we're going to cover as we go through this today. This is hopefully going to be an interactive presentation, so make sure that you ask questions inside of the question bar there. But we're going to cover at least 4 key things that hopefully you can bring back home with you. Take away a little bit of insight from what we're seeing out there in the digital advertising world. So, we want to cover key trends and opportunities that we've got inside of digital advertising in 2024. What are some of the risks and challenges that agencies and brands are facing today? What are some of the emerging best practices and strategies for automation and AI? And then we want to really dig in on some practical use cases for success with these areas. So let's start off with a quick little introduction about Fluency. For those of you that don't know, the point of today is, passing on a little bit of information that we've got, we've collected over our 20 years working inside of the digital marketing world, as well as our experience working with the Fluency platform and building it along the way. But Fluency is a leading provider in digital marketing and advertising operations management. So we're really the first platform to combine robotic process automation and AI to help agencies and brands launch, manage, and optimize their advertising at scale. So we were founded back in 2017. But Eric, I think you've got like a pretty good story here on your experience and sort of your insight. What led us to this place today?
Yeah, Andy, thank you so much. It's always interesting to to just wait to talk about Fluency. I have loved this journey. Like you said, we started in 2017, but the reality is this started 10 years before that. 10 years before that, we tried to run a very large ad operations and agency that was gigantic, and it ultimately became the biggest automotive agency in the country. It's been a great success story. But what we felt through all of that was the pain of trying to scale that ad tech business, or that ad management business. So through that whole time, I know me personally, I've actually had some really cool experiences. I got to sit down with our ad strategist. I'm a technologist first and foremost, but I am also an advertiser. I got to sit in the pod with our ad strats and our analysts, watch them do the job, watch them feel the pain, watch them stay there till 9, 10 o'clock on a Friday night, watch their weekends get ruined. And all I wanted to do was solve that problem. That became my passion, my mission for the next several years. So in 2017, we had a group of us that really were committed to solving this problem for the ad strat and really the operations of the business. It's very difficult to have this labor, this overhead and time commitment that we have, and run a profitable business at the same time. The margins are just challenging to get there. You got to get it from somewhere. So we wanted to use what we could. We wanted to alleviate that pain, and there's no better business out there than a business that alleviates pain, and there's just plenty of it in the ad tech space. So 4 of us together started the company. there's now 75 of us that have all done the job, that all sit there and think about how we make this space better.
Yeah, and Eric, I think that that segues perfectly into our first topic of conversation, and that's really something that probably all of us on this call are feeling right now, and that is the advertising landscape is becoming increasingly complex. What do I mean by that? Well, we all know that the publishers are continuously improving their models on how you optimize ads. They're always adding new formats. If we look at sort of the big three that are out there in the space right now, Google constantly adding newer and richer media formats to their traditional search. Meta is experimenting with AI right now for improved ad targeting, and then you have new players, but no less huge, like Amazon, who are rolling out their own DSP services and non-endemic capabilities. This is all coupled with a continued growth and investment inside of digital marketing year over year. So what does that mean, when we talk about the consumer and the agencies and the brands that they actually serve? Well, one of the things that we know is agencies stand to unlock a lot of opportunity with all of this, all of these new formats. And, when you hear the word new complexity, really that could mean new opportunity for you. I think that one of the things that we're seeing here is consumers are expecting, locally targeted advertising and a consistent messaging throughout what we would traditionally consider that purchase funnel. So it's increasingly important for brands to be able to message the correct message in a safe and compliant way at any time inside of that purchase funnel. And that is creating a crisis of capacity inside of our agencies and inside of brand marketing departments. Increased complexity means that, if we are doing these tasks manually, which is traditionally how, most agencies or brands tackle increased complexity, add more people to the problem, maybe cobble together a new technology solution. But to overcome this crisis of capacity, we really need to look at the growing time pressures that are on top of the account managers inside of these agencies. Brands are expecting more complex media buys. That traditional execution approach really doesn't address that scale problem that Eric was addressing a little bit before. And for us, there's really two big emerging trends that we're looking at here in 2024. The first is brand safety and compliance. It's really getting more complex. The expectations of brands are increasing. If we're talking about a global brand, the laws in which you can message to a consumer may change from state to state or even country to country. And then we've got this, the issue of new ad formats that are coming out, which means that you have to have more creative to match those new ad formats. We know that AI is going to be a little bit of a help in that, but AI is unpredictable. So how do we use this really powerful tool to help us scale against that? This is going to be one of the things that we want to talk about and uncover, because we're seeing some really neat coupling of automation with AI to make intelligent decisions at the ad buy and operations level. So automation, is really, in our view, is really, one of the key problem solvers for a lot of these challenges that agencies are facing right now. It can help to increase the predictability, consistency of ad operations. Eric, I know that when you and the team are developing new features, it's always with a lens of scale. And I'd love to hear sort of your philosophy around that, because I think it's one of the ways that we're going to help to eliminate a lot of those time vampires that, the account managers, the people that were staying up late on a weekend trying to manage a campaign with tons of data. I think that this is, you've got some creative insight on how people can maybe manage that.
Yeah, and you're totally right. And, you and I have actually had this conversation a couple of times, and every time we have this conversation, it kind of develops more into like a cohesive thought around the fact that we talk about complexity, but we're really talking about capability. The ad networks have done some amazing things. They've listened to the space over years. They have creative ideas. They have new ways that you can do some impressive things. They'll roll out a feature. That feature involves new levers to pull and additional buttons to press, et cetera, and they'll tell the world about it, and they'll talk about the amazing value it can deliver. But you're left with just more levers to pull. That's been the interesting thing that I've seen over the years. Is I think about it like I was in aerospace for a little while, and I got to see a helicopter cockpit and so some large jet cockpits, and they are just overwhelming with the amount of levers. And it really feels similar to the advertising space as it develops. There's just so many levers to pull, and so many of them do amazing things with your campaigns. Some of them are just kind of tedium, but in that, if you didn't have a flight computer, those airplanes would go down a lot, right? So we need those assistants. We need that automation to help us keep this ship flying right, and do all the things that just make it so that those levers, we don't need 8,000 arms to pull all those levers. It's been an amazing journey to watch this complexity, because what it does is unlock the space for this vision and this dream about how we might do some of the more complex things, and more of the things that we think will really move the needle in advertising. So we see automation as this governing body that just allows us to make sure that all the right levers are pulled all the time, without making it so that we have to have a million people to do it.
Yeah, that is that is an incredible way to explain the benefits of automation, and maybe the most dire of consequences there, flight automation. However, one of the really interesting things that we've seen, and this is just a fact, is when people begin to implement automation in conjunction with a scaled and competent operations team, the impacts for an organization when they actually begin to use automation can be transformative. So we see massive increases in a number of areas when it comes to labor savings. And for me, one of the coolest things is when you give advertising professionals a little bit of time back in their day, they actually do what they're great at. And that is coming up with higher cognition strategies, better management techniques that can lead to better outcomes. And of course, if you're an agency and you're running a business, the ability to retain margin, inside of your operations, that's just massively important. So, when implemented correctly and the folks really lean in, you can see some incredibly powerful changes that come through automating your advertising back-end operations. I think, Eric, I'd love if you would take a minute and walk us through some of the strategies and use cases that you see, maybe some like real life examples of where this is being implemented.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Andy. Thanks.
Awesome.
One of the best friends of someone trying to make build a technology platform or even solve any of these problems is to listen to your teams. There are some things that they'll say, and there's a phrase that I really have keyed into over the years. I try never to forget any of these. If somebody says, why can't it just, or why can't we just, that is, whatever comes next is an extremely important statement. That statement is the obvious thing that we all wish, as advertisers, that our systems could take care of for us. Some of it seems so obvious, right? When we work with multi-channel strategies, as an example, it's the very first bullet, and this is a really big one. We'll get into more of that as we go. The ad networks are independent. Your DSP doesn't care a lot about your paid search strategy, and your social strategy is kind of sitting in the middle, and there's no forced alignment between those things. They're not made to interop and play well. And the question will be, why can't they just know about each other? Why can't they just be aligned? So listen for those questions. When you listen for those questions, they will pop out bottlenecks in your organization. You'll find out that your team is just spending a lot of time, dovetailing those second two bullets together, spending a lot of time taking data that they know already about their clients, about the accounts that they're trying to advertise, the brands that they're trying to represent. They're taking that data and then regurgitating it into 1, 2, 5, 6 platforms. They're trying to put it all in there and make that cohesive. So that's a very challenging thing to do. And then lastly, end of 2022, OpenAI came out with ChatGPT. We've all played with it. Everybody knows there's huge possibility here. I hear the why can't we just use this a lot of times. And I think we'll talk about why we can't just use that in a little bit. So these questions are something that we want to key into as leaders or as people trying to change the space. And I welcome us all to contribute to it. Anybody that's got a why can't it just, or why can't we just, please, let's talk about it as a community. Let's see how we can solve it. So I think there are a few key strategies that are what we need for success in 2024. It's a different world. Like I said, there are more levers to pull. There are more things that we're expected to do. Our clients know about these new capabilities, and they all want them. They don't understand that it takes more lever pulls to get there. So one of the things that I think that we should really focus on is this multi-channel component. I think the first time I heard about it was at least 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, we were going to start to align from the upper funnel down to the lower funnel, and we just don't see it effectively happening. And there's reasons for it. The reasons are it's super complicated to do. It's not like there's an easy singular tracker that tracks all across all the different channels. And there's not an easy way to go in and configure 5 different systems that take a user from the upper funnel when they're actually just in the, maybe not even in the discovery phase, maybe in just the awareness phase, bringing them through that we're in audience, we're in market phase, but we're maybe not in the consideration of shopping yet, all the way to the self-identification phase that we'll see in paid search, where it says, hey, I am ready to buy and connect me up. Ushering a consumer through that is kind of the mecca that we've been looking for. However, it's just been difficult to get there. So we think that unifying that across channels is extremely important in 2024. And there's only really one way to do that. And that's the centerpiece here. And that's to center your strategy around your data. You have some awareness about your customer, about what they're trying to accomplish. You know their products that they're offering, whether it be automotive inventory or property management, like houses in the MLS feed, or retail products. It doesn't matter. You know something about your client. You know what they're trying to accomplish. Using that data as the center hub for all the spokes that come off of that hub, extremely important. And that's been challenging to do over the last, for up till now. And then finally, I have yet to see a place where anybody would be comfortable letting their messaging be completely auto-generated, having no say in the tone of voice, having no say in brand compliance. So we want to make sure that we can leverage AI. It's an extreme opportunity. It will unlock extreme opportunities for us. But it needs a little bit of governance. It needs to make sure that we stay controlled. So when we think about this AI opportunity, I think there are some great spots for us to leverage AI. I talk about this first one, data gathering and normalization. If we're going to make data that center hub of our strategy, becomes extremely important. We first integrated with first time I saw a power sports company. I think I saw 24 different spellings for the brand Yamaha. There's only 5 letters in Yamaha, so it's kind of interesting to have 25 different spellings of it. But you can get there. Using AI to actually find those patterns, normalize that data, clean it, has been extremely powerful. Content development is the next piece. Andy, you touched on some of the new ad formats. Facebook's been there for a while. We have a lot of multiple assets that we need to generate. It's a richer media area that it's richer ad content for us to generate. Google's followed suit. RSAs, RDAs, so responsive search ads and responsive display ads, all have larger footprint. Although they'll do a lot of automation on the Google side, they have a larger footprint for you to fill out. Now that's become interesting. When I think about the RSA challenge specifically, you've got pinning locations, you've got phrases that you want to make sure are cohesive with each other. You've got a big job as an advertiser to go make those things compatible, that lines can be swapped in and out at any point in time. It can be challenging. We could use AI for this, and we've been doing a lot of experimentation with this here, and it's a lot of fun to actually use. And I think if I were to poll the audience here, you've all used it. I would say, and I'm just going to make an approximation here, you like 70 to 85% of the results. That's about where it hits for me. About 70 to 85% of the results, I love them, and it's great, and I wish I could use it. But then I have to think about, what is that last 15 to 30% mean? What is it? How does it break the narrative? And really, in advertising specifically, I feel like it's a deal breaker. We can't have incorrect pricing and incorrect claims. We can't have broken brand statements and brand tone of voice. So because our clients will be upset with us, and they will look for credits. It can be a very expensive thing for that last 15 to 30% mistake in there. So we think a lot about how we can govern that in a way that we can unlock the value of that 70 to 85% effectively. And that's where this automation umbrella around the outside comes in. Lastly, we talk about data and data interpretation, or reporting and data interpretation. A gigantic portion of the time that we spend as advertisers is articulating what we do for our clients. Did it work?
Yeah.
Where are we going with it? Pulling reports together, figuring out what's going on with the account, finding the value prop story, finding the opportunities for next month, talking about what works and what didn't. It takes a lot of time. AI has been extremely, it's just a great helper in that area. Now you've got to think about what you have for data use rights, and you've got to be careful with that. And there are ways that you can source that a little bit safer. There are private LLMs that don't share your data outside. So this is where the automation umbrella comes around the outside. We have yet to see a client that doesn't have some rules. Fair Housing Act, FHA compliance comes to mind. Brand safety in the automotive space. Just truth in advertising in general. Tone of voice with larger brands, like all those things are really important. And what we think that we need to find is a way that we can wrap automation around AI in a way that says, I know that these are pre-validated and pre-verified good results. I now have a more deterministic outcome. I'm ready to say I can take advantage of that 70, 85% of value that's there without the fear of the 15 to 30% really impacting my business. So wrapping that around with an automation, like kind of a governor, a little monitor around it, I think it helps us unlock that value. This next slide here is a little bit of a humor slide, but this really does happen. Our marketing team, we were going to write a blog about this specific topic. And this is the exact thing that I did. I went into the ChatGPT and I said, can you write me 4 descriptions, the exact thing that you need for an RSA, 4 descriptions about a Porsche. And I gave it some attributes about the Porsche. It was a brand new Porsche. And it comes back with 3 good lines and the 4th line saying cheap bargain Porsches, some phrase that it's got distressed pricing in it. And we know that consumers like like to hear the words cheap and they like to hear the word bargain, but Porsche does not. So if you were to put that out there, you'd get penalized from Porsche. Like, it's just a non-compliant ad. They wouldn't be happy. And I use this because nobody here probably thinks a Porsche is cheap, and I kind of wish they were, because maybe I could have one. But until then, we have to know what we can and can't advertise. We know that we can't do certain things. There are special credit category, special ad category stuff on Facebook and Google that just have rules around what you can and can't do. And the LLMs just aren't always aware of that. So what we want to make sure is, when we get content out of the LLMs and when we get it out of AI, sorry, I didn't define my acronym, LLM, large language model, part of an AI infrastructure. So when we get content from there, we want to make sure that it is going to work for our businesses. And then once we do, we can take advantage of that, hopefully the 85% level, and really just make this thing cook, because we have a lot of jobs. That would really reduce a lot of levers for us. Coming back to the data piece, we want to grow accounts without headcount. And this dynamic data concept gives you that customization and tailoring. If AI is a non-deterministic system, data-driven rule sets, heuristics that you have based on your data, is absolutely going to be a deterministic outcome. So you can marry those two things together with where you can be a little less deterministic, where you can allow a little bit of ambiguity in what the outcomes are going to be, with things that just have to be done correctly. You have a lot of information about your clients. You pull it from them. You do it through onboarding questionnaires. You do it through through looking at their website or hosting their website. Maybe if you're in that space, you have a lot of information about your clients. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that you can use that in a multi-channel way, collectively as a community, in a multi-channel way, to align upper funnel all the way to the demand capture side of advertising. Let's center on that data as our primary hub, and all of these things are spokes that come off of it that usher a consumer through all of that. We want to make sure as we use that data that we're using it in a compliant way, and that we can take advantage of creative optimization and campaign management from that data set. Probably all heard about dynamic campaigns over time. There are different flavors of that. I think it's bigger than just an inventory-based solution, but it's a spot that we really want to focus. So if we were to really summarize this back up into 3 key takeaways, first and foremost, I would say listen to your teams. There's pain in the space. I personally experienced it. I made my entire mission afterwards, along with many other people, not just me, but many other people, to try to alleviate that pain. Find out where they have manual work. And I will guarantee you, it will surprise you if you're not familiar with the space. If you're listening to the team, it'll surprise you what they have for manual work, and it's not because they choose to; it's because they have to. And I think if we're looking for opportunities, that's one of the places that we would want to invest as a community, as an advertising community, to take away that pain of the manual work that we have. Full funnel strategies are extremely important, and I believe that so if I said that the first I heard about it was 10 years ago. 2024 is when I believe that we need to actually solve this problem. So look for a place that you can reduce your swivel seating, find a way that you can align your strategies from top to bottom, think about it from a data perspective, and think about your decision trees that you have in certain scenarios. And then finally, we really need to unlock the potential of AI. It is incredible. I think, like I said, 85% is amazing that it can talk to you properly 85% of the time. But that 15%, we have to know what to do with it. And this is like the new mission that I find myself on. There's a lot of other people in the space that are trying to do it as well, is to think about how we can take advantage of AI in a safe way and understand the deterministic outcomes of where we're going to be with our advertising. So this is the lens that I think we've all amassed together. I hope as we have this open Q&A that's about to come up, that we talk about where your pain points are, and maybe we can find some cool synergies.
Yeah, and Eric, I really love the way that I think all of us know that automation um, can help us be more efficient marketers, can help us do some of the tasks that are you know, repetitive and menial. But I think it's really interesting, and it's an important takeaway for a lot of us here that I think like very frequently AI and automation get intermingled when
Yeah.
from a definition, but really you can look at automation as that protective barrier, as that enforcer of agency governance,
Yeah.
brand governance. Well, you continue to capitalize on this massively powerful tool that you have in front of us that like just this year is going to be changing probably our lives. It's a really interesting thought to be able to say, hey, there is a way that we can harness this dragon and use it to our own benefit, and that automation is probably the way that we're going to do that for the near term.
Yeah, I'm going to jump back to this for just a second, Andy, because you kind of sparked a conversation here. We have a partner that we've worked with, and we've watched them flourish in this space specifically. One of the things that they had to do is that they're in the multifamily housing, so apartments and apartment buildings and senior living, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of rules with FHA compliance, so that Fair Housing Act that we talked about before. They spent a lot of time working on using AI and an automation umbrella on the top of it to clean their data, to make sure that their data was not going to imply any Fair Housing Act violations. They actually do take advantage of dynamic creative, but with the cool thing with the dynamic creative that they have is there's this large list of distressed terms. So terms that you can't use, you can't talk about, sorry if this is bad to even say it on camera, but you can't talk about Section 8 housing or anything like that. Nothing in advertising allows you to do those types of things. So this terminology is scanned on every element that the AI generates just to make sure that none of that leaks its way in. It's checked for truth in advertising and pricing accuracy, and all those pieces are checked. And now they're able to actually operate at scale. Even cooler, and this is one of the fun things that I think we found, going back to that reporting component, so they kind of tick all boxes that we talked about here. They have to articulate their value back out to the individual properties, and those properties are not necessarily advertisers. They run their properties. And to do this in a programmatic way that sounds like natural human speak and in terminology that people understand has been extremely impressive to see how they were able to leverage AI to take data sets and look for signatures and then articulate it back to their clients, to their individual properties in a very human-friendly way. It's been a huge success story, and I know I'm extremely excited to have been part of that journey. It's
what an amazing like real world example of this happening right now. So I think, I don't know, is it John, do you bounce back on for the Q&A here? We're excited to take a few questions here.
Let's do it. Let's get to the slide there. Let's chat. Let's do this. All right. Great presentation, guys. All right, let's get into the questions. And just a reminder, we already have a bunch in, but just a reminder, everybody out there, still have time to send in questions. So if you want to send some in, just participate in our Q&A, just type your question to the Ask a Question text area, then click the send button. But let's get into it. All right, so on my second screen here, first question, what channels do you anticipate being the most important to expand into this year?
John, you mind if I grab that one?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So when we've been in this space for a while, and there are a couple low-hanging fruit that's been there and I think has been harvested over the last several years. Google has done an amazing job making their platform super API friendly. It's friendly to automation. Facebook kind of followed suit, and it's pretty friendly. It's a little less friendly, but it is pretty friendly for automation. But where we've always kind of struggled is in the really upper funnel areas when it comes to this cohesion. It seems like it's kind of the older platform, like the original display ads were You've all seen it. What was it, Andy? Was it a AT&T or something like that? Ad, whatever. So it's a technology that's been around for a while. It doesn't necessarily feel like it needs to play with the others, but we're seeing in 2024 that there's a bigger investment in the programmatic side of the upper funnel advertising. That really does bring consumer awareness and feed the rest of the funnel. Like if you're going to be on Facebook and look for audience type members, those audiences are driven from somewhere. And on paid search, hand raisers are coming because they have awareness about something. So we've seen that as one of the bigger challenges over the last several years, is to automate that side of it. But with the opportunities that we see in front of us now, a real resurgence in the programmatic side of DSP, OTT being included in it, some of the incredible advancements that we have in creative generation. So not just in the AI side of creative generation, because there are components to that we can take advantage of, but also in the ability to do more with video editing tools and some of the deterministic pieces that we have. We think we're poised better than ever, like as a community, poised better than ever, because we want to get that multi-funnel or that multi-touch advertising. We think the upper funnel components are really the part that's going to really resurge in 2024. When when pandemic hit, that was where the retraction was heavy, and we can definitely see that's come back in full force and then some. So we see that upper funnel piece is the 2024 focus from what we can see.
Andy, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, for me, obviously there are so many fun new formats that are coming out every day. I sort of see it. I see the breakthrough as being able to take that media plan and unify that media plan at the top level. Now, what I think traditionally used to happen was, you're an agency, you'd work up the media plan for a brand. Performance marketing would take their piece and social would take their piece. And, you'd have meetings together to make sure that the messaging was cohesive once in a while, but that all lived kind of in a silo. I think with automation, you now have the ability to ensure with that rules book, with that playbook that you can automate, that, there's another person at the top layer, a digital assistant at the top layer, ensuring that media plan is actually, running smoothly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that the communication stream and that the data streams are all connected. And what that does is that really empowers those other teams to begin to make significant modifications, that benefit the brand and the consumer on the fly, instead of basically having to live inside of a silo. So that's one of the super exciting pieces about being able to tie together all of these data sources is you really streamline that media plan from all of these new immediate emerging media formats right down to the traditional paid search. So you have that ability to automate a lot along that workflow. Obviously, the benefit to the agency is, perhaps you can, streamline those processes along the way and help you save some margin there.
That's great. I think you hit it on a little bit. One of the things that I was thinking about, when people think about new technologies, new emerging technologies like AI, it's so tied into digital channels. I mean, it seems kind of seamless to kind of think about them in that sphere. But, obviously there are a lot of things that in marketing, in particular in advertising, that are a little bit still being worked on offline. So they're not quite digital, but everything at the end of the day has to be put into a digital, whether it's a platform or a system or, some type of things along those lines. I was just wondering, to that first question about the channels that you anticipate, are there any that are traditionally that people think of as not being traditional digital channels? I'm thinking about out of home, for example, where AI and automation, maybe people aren't actually thinking about it, how that would help, or, are there any other applications that people may not be thinking about?
Andy, you want to grab that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I definitely think that, yeah, it's a really good question there, John. I think that I guess when it comes to automation for me and those, what we would consider traditionally manual channels, when you work through that, one of the big benefits of automation is all of the information that you've got to kind of put in there is there for you already.
Yeah.
So if you've like typed up the data correctly, there's just a ton of work that's done for you up front. So when you're building that campaign, if you don't have to go back and like look at a spreadsheet and say, oh, who is this for? What's the address? Like
That's the dream, right? Never to look at a spreadsheet again.
It is just the best thing when it's there for, like, if you're building a campaign and all of that information is there for you, pre-populated, ready to roll, and what you do is you implement your strategy. That is what makes an agency or a brand marketing department unique. It's not their ability to copy and paste a name from one data set into another. It is their ability to message to the consumer in their unique format. And if you can give people the time, instead of having to do all of that upfront work to build upon, their unique capabilities, it just makes it much better for the agency or brand marketing department. Eric, you got thoughts on that?
I mean, I have a tangential. I mean, not to follow up yours exactly, Andy, but what we've seen over the last 17 years is that if you weren't digital, you become digital. And right. and John, I think your statement was, are people just not aware? But TV was not digital when we started this. TV is absolutely digital now. Out of home wasn't digital, is definitely digital at this point. So what we can see is because it's so challenging to run this any other way, that if you don't find a way to digitize your interaction, your buying strategy, it becomes a dead medium, right? Newspapers are now purchasable digital, right? So you can do all of these things now. And it's just because when you go into an agency and 85% of their, I started to use that number again, 80% of their business is run digitally, and they can feel what automation can do for that part of the business, the appetite to do the other side just goes away. And it's not like we're short. If you ever looked at your children, it's not like we're short for eyeballs on digital medium. They're there. They're there right. all the time. So we feel the trend that if it's a compelling medium, it's coming digital if it's not already there.
I think the next question kind of hits on some of the stuff we just talked about, and it's how can I make the case internally for my company to adopt ad automation? I think you kind of started to answer that, and the both of you did actually. It's that you've got to do this, right?
Well, I mean, nobody's holding anybody hostage, but I think economy of scale definitely shows it over time. There's some slides up earlier where Andy showed what the cost savings are. So you can become a more efficient agency if you bring in automation. The precursor to all of that is understanding your business well. There's definitely we've seen it in some agencies where it's really on the back of heroes. Their entire businesses, we have a couple of amazing strategists. And the challenge with that is if they're sick, if they leave, the business is at risk. So I think really understanding what your core value prop is, how do you sell your agency against somebody else's? What makes you? Understanding that. And that kind of leads you into a space where you start to mind map how you make decisions. In this scenario, we would generally do X, and in this other scenario, we would do Y. And if you can map that out, you can put cost and time to every one of those decision trees and execution points. Automation, it's great. Like, think about it. You can draw a flow chart, you can automate it, and that flow chart is just how you think through your processes. And I believe that if you were to go into your business and you saw where your flow chart, where your time was spent in your flow chart, you would not be overly excited about the amount of time and energy that's put into things that are easily automatable. And I'm excited for the concept of, if we can alleviate that pain point, then ad strategists really do what they, right in the title, they do strategy. They think about how we can grow advertising over time, what compelling messaging and what things that we're going to attack from a business perspective. They can interface with their clients better. They can grow those relationships, and they can actually grow that book of business in a really compelling way when they're not just in the copy paste game.
Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. For me, it, I might even answer it a little bit different. And that is, it may be like an answer of self-reflection there. And that is, what do the brands who hire you think you do on a daily basis? If they're like, listen, I know that my agency is spending 80% of their time bouncing budgets across all of these different channel formats. I know that they're hunting and pecking to try and fight fires that come up inside of if that's the case, then you're probably fine. You probably don't need any automation. But if we're being super honest with ourselves, all of our clients hire us as agencies to be coming up with creative and interesting ways to get our message out to our consumers, right? Or the people that we're trying to talk to. So, we kind of have, it's a quippy statement around here, but you can't be a white glove agency, which I think most of us would love to think we are, if you are doing work glove tasks 80% of the time during your day. And, I think that if we're being honest with ourselves, yes, definitely, Eric's right. There's like a whole bunch of really good preparatory work that you can do as an agency that'll prepare you, to onboard automation. But really it comes down to, are we doing all of the work that our clients are expecting us to do on a daily basis? And do we love doing that work? And if we can use automation to, get closer to that truth, I think that is, that's a valid goal, a valid business goal.
Okay, we have a couple of kind of almost one-on-one type questions, and I'd like to get to those next. The first one is, it's very straightforward, and if you're not a hardcore marketer, maybe you don't understand the concept of a full funnel strategy, but the way I'd like you to answer the question is, what do you mean by full funnel strategy? But the way I'd like you guys to answer it is, what was a full funnel strategy before AI and automation? What does it mean now? So maybe you can kind of compare and contrast a little bit and say, okay, this is the way, and this kind of leans in a little bit of your presentation, but maybe just kind of revert in like the 30-second version of, here are all the advantages that we're going to be seeing in the next year as far as deploying. You were talking a lot about the upper funnel before, Eric. So maybe kind of you can start and kind of go a little bit deeper. Okay, what else is going to be affected?
Well, let's go with just a term. I maybe this will date me. I don't know if they still use it, but we'll use Toyotathon. If we're a paid search marketer, nobody searches for Toyotathon without some awareness of what Toyotathon is. How do they get that? They get that from the upper funnel. We call it interrupt-based marketing, where the users out there, they're watching TV. TV was a great version of this, where we're watching a TV show and we're going to interrupt the user and we're going to inform them of something. The user didn't ask us to see that necessarily. We informed them. It was great. And now all of a sudden we start to do our, it sticks in our mind. We start to do our research. We move to the next phase. We're just kind of in the research phase. We get generally put into an audience saying, hey, they have shown some activity, some action that shows a little bit of interest in our product or service. Put them in an audience. And now we're going to start to remarket to them. We're going to start to tell them the story deeper. We're going to give them more information about it. We're going to bring them a little further down the funnel. And eventually we're going to get to the point where they're on Google and they're saying, where can I go for Toyotathon? And That's a search phrase, and that's a super strong buying signal. It's really low when we talk low in the funnel. That user is ready to purchase. They're ready to go look and test drive a vehicle, and that's a phrase nobody knows. I'm sure Farfagnugan from like way back was even more compelling for that, right? Did I nail the way it's pronounced, Andy? I don't know if I did.
Oh yeah, you definitely just dated all of us right here on this podcast.
Fair.
That was like 5 years ago, right, guys?
Yeah, Google it. And you'll see how this is an upper funnel medium right now. So what we're looking for is this connected component from top to bottom. Inform the user, usher them through the process, and then ultimately convert them in those lower funnel activities. What I think is different before versus now, and this is the promise has been there, is to look at all these segments and signals that say, these are the types of actions somebody's taken. They've actually submitted a lead, and then they have gone stale. I'm going to hit them with a different message in this scenario. And the number of branches, the number of different ways that you might interact with the user based on the actions that they've taken, how you would customize that messaging, it's mind-numbing how difficult it would be to pull off without automation. So this is where we go back into that mapping, mental mapping your business, the decision trees that you have. If you can map it out and you can structure your automation around it, now you can hit the user with multiple different messages based on the actions that they've taken. They put something in their cart and they left. Show them something again, maybe give them an offer, those types of things that will bring them back into the funnel. Now, you wouldn't hit them with an offer necessarily if it's in the cart and they just put it in there 10 minutes ago, they're already going to buy, or their signal is that they might buy. But once they've gone down into a next thing of expiration, or they removed it from their cart, maybe we hit them again with something a little bit different. So all those different use cases that we would say, when a user takes these n number of behaviors, meet them with this message. When they do something else, meet them with a different message. So that's a really important component that I see in 2024 that we're trying to advance towards.
Right, and a lot of that automation has been in use for a while now. It's just that the newer technology, the more sophisticated technology, and the models that are being built allow the marketers and brands to be that much more specific and accurate in that type of targeting, right?
Yeah, and not taking
retargeting.
Taking months and months to implement. It's very, there's a lot of implementation time just to do those functions. It's just heavy.
Right? Yeah, the scale of variance just, multiplies now by serious factors. And, it would typically take a stadium full of people to complete the tasks now that that automation is currently helping brands and agencies work consumers through that very mythical funnel that we're talking about right now.
It certainly puts it out of reach for the small to medium business. So if you're in the space of small to medium business, the energy and effort just to sink into those strategies just isn't likely to ever get done. And we think that if we can get there, then they can start to level the playing field and really compete on on level.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that idea of leveling the playing field kind of plays into that other question that we asked about, making the case internally to adopt, automation. The next one is also related to that. I'd like you guys to comment on it. And it's, if I deploy automation from the ground up, this is one of the concerns. What roles go away? So do people lose their jobs? But then what new roles are also needed or created from that?
What we try to do more than anything is to not make labor cost scale linearly with client scale. So that's the first thought. So I don't think that we're looking to take any jobs away, but it's more that high cognition work, the customer relation, the strategic interfacing with your client. That's the piece that we'd like to unlock time for. I don't think anybody feels like they have a surplus of people right now. We're all like stressed. I'm stressed, right? So it would be nice to have a little bit of the time back from the things that I know I could offload, and we all do it. Anybody that's used Google's smart bidding as an example no longer goes in and manually modifies individual CPCs. Like, we know that it's a smart move to do, and it saves a lot of time. It just becomes an untenable place. So we take that time that we have previously sunk into tedium, and we move it into the higher value, higher cognition pieces, the relationship building, the value articulation, the strategic growth of ad portfolios. I don't know of anybody who runs digital marketing and says that it just doesn't work. So if you think of it almost like a vending machine, like I'm going to put $1 in and I'm going to take $5 out every time, right? Up till I empty the machine, I should do that. So working with your clients to make sure that they understand that, showing that value, helping them know what's, how much is in the vending machine to pull back out, and how much they should invest. I think that's a really important part, and we want to relieve the tedium so we can have that strategic conversation there.
There's a takeaway answer to that question more along the lines of, don't think of it in terms of, well, who's not, what roles are going to be taken away, what new roles are going to be given. It's more about, it helps your existing marketing team really focus on the things that are important to you and do their jobs better. So think about it as the tools. I mean, we all use spell check. We all use all these things that have just become so commonplace. It's just another thing that's going to be more and more commonplace the more and more we integrate it into our everyday work situation.
John, that's a great example, the spell check. I can imagine if we were all here with dictionaries trying to look up words to make sure that they're all right, it would be
and then automated spell check as it's doing it as you're typing,
Totally.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I do think, I just want to say these questions from the audience they've been awesome. So thank you. It's a lot of fun to interact with fellow marketers out there. I do think there will be some new roles though inside of an agency that pop up here. I think that the role of the technical marketer is going to become just so critical inside of an agency. The people that have the ability to hook together data pipes and envision how automation layers play out, future facing, those people are going to become really valuable inside of an agency. And that's going to be a really fun role to see kind of evolve, as we all become like editors inside of this,
right.
Expanding AI world, the people that are really able to see kind of like, down the road there, that's going to be an exciting new future for folks there.
That's such a great point, Andy. The marriage of creativity and technology and putting those things together and be able to again, it goes beyond like that. There's that existing fear factor when this all came about, we're afraid of robots or whatever, but it's really more along the lines of, it still takes that human creativity and insight to be able to combine all this together and kind of come up with that great idea or ideas, or the way to read the data, the way to read the technology, the new insights that you're getting from the AI.
Exactly.
I see AI as a robotic exoskeleton for us imperfect people. There's the technical marketer and there's the creative marketer, and it kind of fills in where we're weak. We all have, I have my weaknesses. I'm really happy that I have those components. It might be spell check. I don't know, maybe that's my weakness, but having those assistants that actually help us become more complete. And I think that's the world that we find ourselves in, is that we will need to think as complete marketers as we go forward. And we use this technology to help us where we might have our weak spots or our blind spots.
All right. Well, I think that that's a great place to end. Thank you guys, Eric and Andy, so much for this. It was a great chat, a great presentation. I want to thank everybody out there for attending Adage's custom webcast sponsored by Fluency. Just a few reminders before we go. You can view and listen to this presentation on demand using the same link that you used to attend today. You'll receive an email as soon as our archive is ready. On behalf of our guests, Eric Mayhew and Andy MacLeay, I'm John Dios for Adage Studio 30. Thank you so much for your time and have a great day. Bye,
John,
guys.
thank you for having us.
See ya.